Alrighty, so welcome to YBI's Lunch and Learn, Building Your Brand on Purpose with Sally Schriner and Dana DeSantis. For those of you who do not know me, I am the program coordinator for YBI Engine Tech Incubator. My name is Lauren Carter. For those of you who don't know what the YBI Engine Tech Incubator is, it's a bespoke startup incubation located in Northeast Ohio. We work with hardware and software companies, especially in the aerospace and defense sector, and B2B SaaS companies. We offer services for free to high-performing startups, and we do not take any equity, and we offer non-dilutive funding. Please today just be respectful of the noise going around in your background. So please, like Sally already stated, please mute yourselves so there is no background noise interrupting them. If you are eating lunch right now, you are welcome to have your camera off, but I highly encourage you guys to be interactive and ask questions either by raising your hand or putting it in the chat. And with that, I will pass over to Sally and Dana to introduce themselves because I will not speak on their experiences.
Hey, great. Thank you, Lauren. Hi, I know some of you. I'm Sally Schriner, and I have been an entrepreneur in residence or an EIR with YBI for 10 years. So I've been working with companies like yours who are entering their business or continuing on their business journey, growing. My specialty is in sales and marketing focus. So usually help companies who are looking to accelerate sales. And I say sales and marketing together because really they are tied together. A lot of what we're going to talk about today, we really feel is a key cornerstone to your sales strategy, as well as making sure your brand strategy is sorted out. And I'm also a fractional chief marketing officer for growing businesses, mainly private equity backed, and help with, again, partnering with sales and marketing organizations within those companies to accelerate growth. And Dana is a partner of mine that I work with some of those companies, as well as with some YBI companies. So I'll let you touch on your experience, Dana.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I have spent the last 10 years totally focusing my business, just a small marketing boutique, on startups and high growth companies. And Sally and I have collaborated quite a bit over the years together. So happy to be here and helping all of you grow.
So we're going to dive right in. We have a lot of content, and there are going to be some different pieces we'll talk through. As Dana mentioned, some interactive piece or, sort of classwork that'll happen during the webinar. And then there's some homework we can give you as well. But why are we here talking about this? So I have worked with many CEOs and owners of companies, some who have said to me, hey, isn't a brand just a logo? Can't you just make my logo and that's the brand? And to that, we would say, no, the logo is a piece of your brand, but it is not the brand. It is not just your logo, your tagline, the colors, it's everything that we put together. And so what you all have as a company name, again, is not necessarily a brand either, right? There's a process that you have to put together. What is it that your customer looks to you for uniquely in the market and that you can do over the competition? And so that's what we're really here to work on today is what do you want your brand to say? And how does that happen through all the touch points that every single employee, as well as your marketing materials and sales materials say?
All right. So before we dive into the exercises, we just want to spend a couple of minutes on kind of the DNA of a strong brand. So what is brand? I'd sum it up with one word. A great brand is rooted in intentionality. More specifically, I think that the keys behind that intentionality are having clarity, consistency, and emotional resonance. So if you look at the chart on the right, it shows a number of tactical elements that help you bring your brand to life. But companies who have really nailed their brand make you feel something. Taking a look at these logos on the page, when you see the logo for Jeep, you just don't associate it with adventure. You actually can feel a sense of adventure. When you think of Southwest, you probably have a memory of a funny, friendly airline attendant that went out of their way to make you smile. After all, their ticker symbol is love. And for the brands who have really made it, all they need is a black and white symbol to project their brand promise to the world. Today, we're going to spend time getting clearer on what you stand for and helping you connect that with your customer's need so that it resonates emotionally. When we do this well, brand moves from a tactical function, like Sally was talking about, all the things on the left, to a strategic function. It becomes why customers choose you, what people say about you, the promise you make and keep, the strategic pillar that helps your company grow. And this is really an essential foundation for any company of any size at any stage. It's not just for the Procter & Gamble's of the world. So really excited to help you guys build that today. So a recent report from Gartner showed that companies are 2 times more likely to exceed revenue goals when a strong brand strategy is in place. For companies doing this right, brand is used as a lever to help you navigate disruption, guide innovation, and sustain your differentiation and growth. And again, today we're really going to be spending time getting into the layers to find out what makes you unique so you can leverage that through everything, from yes, your logo to all the way why people choose you. And I'm going to start getting into exercises. Sally's going to kick us off.
And especially as many of you are startups, I know Dana just said it's not just for Procter & Gamble, but we also feel that this is the time as a startup, it's even more important for you to define what your brand is, because that will help you make better decisions. It will help your customers be attracted to and really understand in those early phases when you do not have brand awareness and you do not have a reputation, to have people understand what you are doing through what your brand is communicating. And want to reiterate, have that be very clear and have that be very consistent in every touch point. One of the things that we do see, and we'll go through this, one of the things we do see is that sometimes companies will do something in the beginning to get a website out there, do something to get, a first sales sheet out there. But there is an evolution that will happen as you continue to get customer feedback and really hone in on what your brand positioning is, that you need to revisit it too, right? So want to just reiterate that this is an exercise we'd like to introduce to you, and it's not just a set it and forget it. There's going to be a lot that will also happen in your business through the course of your business that will have you revisit this, through time too, and check in. But what we're talking about today is how do we establish that first to make sure that as you're out in the marketplace, you're being very clear and consistent to help customers understand who you are. So we're introducing here the brand cornerstones, and this is a framework. You have the sheet, the placemat sheet that Dana mentioned. And so there's 4 pieces of this, and we're going to walk through the why, the who, the promise, and your personality. And so this again we're going to go through it in an hour. This is not necessarily an hour exercise, but we want to introduce it to you and give you keys in here that will allow you. We'll have some take-home exercises too that you can do with. We actually really encourage you to use your AI partners, whoever your AI partner is, whether that is ChatGPT or Claude or any of the ones out there. If you have a an AI partner, please use it to help you with refining this too. And we'll show you how you can do that. So the first one is your why. Why do you exist? And this gets into, Dana mentioned the emotional connection, right? This really starts very emotionally. Why did you create the company? Why do you exist? Why should people come to work every day and get excited about it? So what is it that you're doing? Why are you doing what you are doing? And this is something that sometimes is very personal to a founder. And we like to see that it's something that you can really rally the whole company against, right? So most founders started not because, they just said, hey, let me go start a business. They saw something that wasn't working and they really believed they could do it better. Why, really think about why is it that you started this business? So we'll give you an example. So we picked Siemens. We know that this is, sort of a local example too, that we can pull on and why they really created their business. And again, we're looking at this as a very big company and what they expressed today, which could have been very different when they first started. But they have a why statement, mission statement of, we want to transform the everyday for everyone. By combining real and digital worlds, we can help accelerate both digitalization and sustainability so our customers around the world can become more competitive, resilient, and sustainable. So they really have this why around we are going, and again, there's some what in here too, right? We're combining real and digital worlds, but their why is we want to help accelerate digitalization and sustainability. And they're allowing their customers to be more competitive, resilient, and sustainable. So think more about why is it that you have existed, why you started your business, and why that matters to the world and why it matters to your customer. I'm going to the next one. Okay, so we're going to take just 2 minutes and a little exercise of why does your company exist beyond making a profit, right? So think about why you started the business. And Dana, do you remember what's the Southwest example? I know we had that. It's beyond just, flying, right? I think it's really connecting people is what their why is. They want to connect people. And so that connection, if you think about Southwest and their connection, it's not just connecting people from city to city, it's connecting with people in the plane, right? That's when you see the crazy flight attendants, popping out of the overhead, they're really making that connection and making it fun. So take a minute just to jot down, why does your company exist? And don't worry about making this polished or anything. We'll keep iterating on this in the future too. So Dana, I know we didn't talk about this, but like the why we created our own companies too, right? There is a why of why I quit my job and went out on my own. And really it was to help centrally, allow small businesses to have the ability to work with somebody to grow their business, right? That they couldn't afford and help. But my ultimate why, when I dug 3 deeper, whys, was I really wanted to help the Northeast Ohio region grow. And I was like, I want to be able to help, show off Cleveland and this Northeast Ohio companies where I saw they didn't have the ability to do that. I don't know if there's anything you want to share on your why.
Well, we're at time.
Oh, okay. All right.
but you were right on the Southwest why it was about connecting people to the things that are most important to them through low cost airfare. So
yeah, great. Okay. Well, so now we know a little bit more about, going deeper. Oh. So after this, go ahead. You want to?
Yeah. Do you want to flip back?
Nope, that's okay. So yeah, so after the session, one of the things you can do when you do have your unpolished statement, we're going to give you these sort of AI thought partner prompts. And so you'll be able to paste in what you just created and ask your AI partner, hey, could you help me make this a little more polished? Could you, give me some probing questions, and we'll just hand that off to you as an exercise to go further after the session. So now, again, like the why, the next question is, who cares? So I'm going to hand over to Dana to talk a little bit more about who cares about you.
All right. So the who is something that we can see businesses get wrong when they try to boil the ocean. The mistake is almost always the same. They try to talk to everyone and they end up resonating with no one. So forget about your total addressable market for a second. Instead, think about your single best customer, the one who gets it, the one who values what makes you different, who comes back, who tells others, who, if you could clone. That person, that very specific type of person, is your who. And when you can describe them clearly, your marketing, your sales conversations, even your hiring can get much sharper. So the trick here is to get very specific. What's their title? What's their industry? How big is the company? And most importantly, what problem do they have before they find you? Understanding their pain points and the specific language they use for these pain points is super important. This is what will allow you to successfully bridge your offering with their need. It's also helpful to understand where else your customers might go to solve their problems. In other words, who are your competitors? Well, this is technically its own exercise when Sally and I typically do a longer version of this. We don't have time to go into it deeply today, but I want to explore it lightly here. So on this example, I'm going to go back to Siemens. So Siemens' ideal customer is leaders in industry, infrastructure, and transportation who need to digitize, automate, and decarbonize, and who choose Siemens because they can do all three with one partner. So notice here, they don't say manufacturers who need equipment. They say leaders in infrastructure and transportation who need to digitize, automate, and decarbonize. Notice what all of that does. It names the role, leaders, not just any employee. It names the sectors, and it names a specific challenge, 3 things they need to do simultaneously. That last piece is doing a lot of work because it implies that most of their competitors only solve 1 or 2 of those things. What this shows us here is this: specificity doesn't shrink your market. It deepens your relevance to the right people in it. So on our exercise for the who, we want you to take 2 minutes on your placemat, notebook, whatever, laptop. Describe your ideal customer with as much specificity as you can. Name their role, name their industry, try to jot down at least 1 frustration or pain point that they bring to you. And I would say, even though, again, it's not really part of this, I would jot down 1 or 2 of your competitor names that you can do a little research on later and just explore their positioning. How are they talking about how they address the pain point? What language are they using? What imagery are they using? I think that can sometimes tell us a bit. Sometimes you have great news and they don't do it very well, but if they are doing it very well, it's good to be aware of. So we'll take a second. You don't have to overthink it. Just write down what you know, and we'll go from there.
And I think the specificity here, be really specific about who your decision maker is, who you're talking to, even if it is, multiple people, right? It could be the CFO in a healthcare organization or a chief medical officer and a CFO, but be specific.
Did we write it on the chat?
No, you can just write on your piece of paper or in your online notebook, however you would like to do that.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Is that enough time?
Okay.
Okay. So the AI thought partner exercise, to go a little deeper, basically you're just going to take what you wrote today, again, take it to ChatGPT or Claude and ask it to help you go a little bit deeper. If AI's first version sounds like it could describe any business in your industry, push back and ask what would make it more specific to us and help it really earn the answer. So, keep pushing to see what other questions you should be asking to sharpen the profile, and just keep pushing further to get as specific as you possibly can.
Okay. So now we know who we're serving and what they're struggling with. So why should they choose you? So your promise is what is making you different. So if you know what market you're serving, you know who the person you're serving, what their problems are, what are the problems you are solving. So, it's what is your aspirin to their pain point. And I always like to think about this as like really a burning need, right? This is not just a nice to have, but what's the burning need that you can communicate that you have a solution for? And so the promise is what's making you different, what they can count on. It is the expectation that you're willing to set with the customer of what they will receive. Your unique selling proposition, USP, if you've heard that before too. And there's, I like to, in this sort of exercise, think about sometimes there's things called table stakes, right? It's something that you have to compete. And so that table stake is not going to be a unique selling proposition. It's something you have to already have. So this is that unique piece that makes you different from everyone else. And sometimes this is a combination of factors. It doesn't just have to be one thing. It can be a combination of, we have extremely high touch customer service combined with expertise in this category beyond, something else. So like it can be, just think about it as a combination, or as it can be a single thing that you're offering that others can't offer. Price, sometimes people like to say, well, I'm doing it at a cheaper price, but you're not going to win on that in long term on price. So it would have to be price combined with something else, right? It could be ease of use and price together. Or in, an AI world, think about that too. Today, there's a lot of, hey, we're AI solution. Well, think about what that AI solution is coming down the road. How can they not copy you? What are the ways they cannot copy you? So again, the more specific you can be, the more it will resonate to what that solution is for the pain that you are solving. So I like to say, when I work with your company, what can I always count on? And here's Siemens' example. You can count on a partner who bridges that physical digital world. Your path to digitalization and sustainability doesn't require you to choose between the two, right? One partner that helps you with both. So we're going to give you an opportunity now to do this exercise. But one of the other to-dos that I think you should check in with is your actual customers on your promise, right? Check back with them about, even if you have people you're communicating with every day, why did you choose us? Why do you stay with us? What are we doing different than the other options out there? The reason, I really want to talk about how you bring customers into this is because there needs to always be communication with your customers back to making sure you're doing what you said you were going to do, that promise is still resonating in the marketplace. And as your sales team, or sometimes it's still a founder salesperson as well, you're just keeping with the pulse of that customer to check in, like, are we doing what we said we were going to do? I want to give an example that I have a client that I work with, and I just did an interview for a case study. It was an open-ended, like, tell me why you have chosen, how did you come to learn about this company? And then why did you choose them? And it was a company that they brought with them to a next company that they had gone to as well. And when I asked them, that person, what makes them different, the three things that we had outlined in their unique selling proposition, unprompted, is exactly what that customer said. And so that was, to me, being somebody who, again, putting the marketing pieces together, to hear that from a customer, that they really understood the value proposition is like gold. Now I can take that and put it into a case study and hope that we can get that in front of other people who are experiencing the same pain points. So again, we're going to have you take a couple minutes to think about that promise. I think this one can be, it can be difficult for you to get that out into the right words. So don't worry about that right now. Just think about, what is it that when people work with your company, they can count on. And again, some of the massaging of this and AI assisting with that afterwards, or even you and your team working on it afterwards, can help put together a full statement. So take a minute to just think about, what is your promise? When you work with my company, you can always count on X. Okay, I think we'll go on to just giving you an idea of your AI prompt after this. Really, here's where you can write your brand promise. Tell me, how does this look like? Is this differentiated? I think this is a great opportunity to use AI to say, and Dana and I do this with companies where people will say, this is my positioning statement. And then we even just look at websites of their competitors and go, oh gosh, this is all the same. We have had that experience where it's like we have to find that angle that's going to make you different, so you don't look at each of these competitive websites. When somebody's evaluating, they're just going to see the same messaging out there. When that happens, in my opinion, that's the table stakes. This is everybody
and it comes down to price at that point.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there has to be some other reason. So again, tell me honestly, how does this look like something my company could say, or can any business claim this? If it's too generic, how could I find something more specific to show up for our customers? Okay. So now we've talked about who the customers are, your why they should count on you, and how do we now consistently talk about this in a way that people will understand who you are.
Yeah. So I always joke, it's the fun part. I love talking about personality, partially because it shows up in everything. It shows up every day. It's not just strategic planning language. It's how you answer the phone. It's how you write an email. It's, who you hire, what the experience is when you guys are at a trade show, right? Like it's literally kind of seeps through every part of how you guys show up. But many businesses actually never explicitly name this. And when Sally and I do this in person in workshops, we'll actually do several different exercises to kind of like really pull out unique, differentiated words. Like Sally was saying in the last exercise, a lot of stuff can start to feel like table stakes. So it's really, what here makes you as unique as possible and really trying to hammer that out. If you find this exercise helpful, you're welcome to use it. But one exercise I love to use sometimes if people are stuck or, it can be hard to describe yourself, which most founders in describing their company, it's kind of like describing yourself. So a lot of times I'll say, if your brand was a celebrity, who would your brand be? And that can be like a gateway to just think about your brand kind of through a different lens. And you can think about those attributes a little bit differently. If it's Ted Lasso, it's easier to describe Ted Lasso than it is to describe yourself sometimes. If it's Superman, it's easier to describe Superman than it is to describe yourself. So if that's a helpful exercise, I hope you can use that. But the right three words that you will select are really ones that your team can use to make a judgment call. So as an example, is this email we're about to send consistent with who we are? If your words are too generic, they will not help you answer that question. So in the case of Siemens, theirs is fantastic, purposeful, responsible, and empowering. They aren't just words, they show up in Siemens' actual behavior. They have helped customers avoid 694 million tons of carbon. They invest nearly 438 million euros annually in employee education. And that's all proof behind their personality, right? They're not just saying we're empowering. They're like, the proof is in the pudding. They are empowering their employees every day. They, are leading with responsibility every single day. So when you're thinking about your words, really thinking about what your actions are and what's kind of the description of those actions that you're taking. So we're going to give you just a couple minutes to write down 3 words. And again, feel free to ask any questions if you have them, and we'll just give you a second to jot that down.
And maybe you want to think about that celebrity that resonates too. I think we had a fun one once where somebody was like Lady Gaga, and you're like, whoa, why is Lady Gaga represent your brand? And they're like, unexpected. But like kind, unexpected. So there's ways to look at the multifacets of a celebrity too, of how that might represent your brand.
And I know this one could be a little quicker, so I'll just give you a little challenge question while you're working on your words. Would your best customer use those exact same words to describe you? So similar to the last exercise where, Sally was looking at the brand promise, this is also how you guys are showing up in the world. Do you feel like it's clear enough that people can get that? When we were talking about Southwest, It's like they're friendly and they're fun. Like there's no denying that. When you think of Jeep, it's adventurous. Like, I mean, those just come through so strong. So really thinking about how your customer would describe you, and if you feel like there's a gap, or if you feel like there's something that's not connecting, there may be a little more work to do there. So how else can you put effort towards how you want to be seen in the world? How do you help make that a reality? Or maybe it's the wrong word at this point. So just things to all of this. Again, every exercise we're doing is that clarity, really trying to get clear and really trying to help your business be super intentional.
I think this one's another one that, we talk about the AI prompt. For those of you who have been using an AI partner, I love calling, I'm always like my AI partner. And by the way, just because I don't want to go on a tangent, but 6 months ago, I think people were sort of hiding from using AI. It was like, I'm using this, but I don't want you to know that I'm using it. And we really feel that today it's a strength for you to be leveraging an AI partner. And in certain ways, I certainly don't say that necessarily to my 14-year-old in her schoolwork, but for a business to really look at someone that when it is learning who you are, I think in this case, many times if you're already working with an AI partner, it will be able to tell you what kind of personality you have been putting into it as well, right? So it can read back to you, hey, you know what? You always choose an option that's really friendly, or you always choose an option that's really detailed, right? Like, so it will be interesting to see, what does your AI tell you about your personality based on the sales materials or the other marketing materials you've already been inputting and relying on it for.
Yeah. And then again, I think just in looking at the prompt, we're going to sound like a broken record, but really trying to be specific enough to be useful here, avoiding the generic. I love the prompt of what this would look like in practice, right? How does this trait show up in our emails, our proposals, how we answer the phone? And what's the opposite of this word? Who are we not? What's the the do's and the don'ts kind of how we operate in the world. So great prompts for you to work with after the session. And then we've gone through the 4 cornerstones. So we've just done something that a lot of business owners actually never do. You've put words to the 4 things that really drive your entire business. And so many people just operate on instinct, or even worse, much worse, the last sales conversation. That's Sally and my pet peeve. It's, just this constant kind of iterative approach. You iterate, you're always moving and meandering. And again, it's the complete opposite of building a consistent, intentional brand. Yes, you need a little bit of that as you're trying to figure things out. But once you have figured it out, it's time to, kind of draw the line in the sand and decide who you are and who that is really clearly, so people can remember you. You've all heard that it's like the old marketing adage, you need to see something 7 times before you remember it. So if every time you're putting out a message, it's a different message, someone will never remember that. You need that consistent message out. And I mean, Sally and I are entrepreneurs. We work with entrepreneurs every day. We love entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs get bored, and a lot of people get bored with their same message. So it's really an exercise in appreciating the clarity and the consistency and knowing what that will do for you and sticking with it until, as Sally mentioned, it's time not to, and your business has evolved and, it's time to readdress. But in this exercise, we're going to start pulling everything together. So this slide is your payoff slide. It's when you combine your why, your who, your promise, and your personality into one coherent statement. This is your brand foundation. It's not a tagline. It's not an elevator pitch. It is internal. That's one thing. Some of this, yes, will fuel external messaging and statements, but it's really your North Star. It is you doubling down on, what you're about. It's all of your team and everyone internally being able to align around something. So when you do bring your brand to life through messaging, your website, your trade show booth, all of the things, how you answer the phone, how you show up in the world, it all roots back to the same ingredients. I always say this is kind of an exercise of determining the ingredients you're going to be working with. So we'll look at how Siemens does it. We exist to transform the everyday for everyone through technology that bridges the real and the digital worlds. It's their why. We serve leaders in industry, infrastructure, and transportation who need to digitalize, automate, and decarbonize. That's your who. And they choose us because we're the only partner who helps them do all three without choosing between them. That's the promise. Delivered with purpose, responsibility, and relentless focus on empowering the people we work with, personality. So you're going to basically take that same, you're going to build that same structure based off of your 4 answers to these 4 cornerstones. And I think we can leave you to do that afterwards. I don't want to shortcut. Sally's going to go into the next section on how to build from this. So I don't want to shortcut her time and any time for Q&A. So we'll just kind of leave you with this prompt. You can take it after the session.
Okay, so back to hey, isn't brand just a logo? Like, can't you just give me, and I mean, I've had these conversations. Can't you just give me a new logo? And isn't that it? And so I hope that through those exercises, you can see that that's, brand is way beyond just the logo. And actually what we always say is that the logo should not be developed until after you have the answers to all of those questions, because that should really go into a creative brief that helps guide the logo and the visual identity of the brand. And so that may be, based on the personality. How do you use visual? Are you using imagery that's photos or drawings or cartoon characters based on what your brand essence is? Okay. So that's one piece of it. It really can guide what that visual identity is for the business. Rarely will you find an agency or anybody that would start working on a logo without all of that background. Okay. But the next part that I'm going to talk about is that this also is a cornerstone of mission, vision, and values, which really internally guides your culture. And because, what our belief is, you do this in the right order, this kind of writes, all of these start writing themselves because you've had the thought about, like, why are we doing this? Well, that feeds into your mission, right? Your why and your promise. The vision is really, where are we going? What do we want to have happen? So if mission is like what we're here to do today and why, then the vision is where we're trying to go. We already know what the why is. How does that extend forward? What happens in 5-10 years? And then the values are how we're agreeing to operate along the way. Personality and promise play into this as well. But really it is like the non-negotiable, and I always say hire and fire by these values. Like, you have to have these in order to do well at this company and do well as a representative of our brand. Brand ambassadors come out of the culture of an organization as well. Many of you probably have had an experience where you'll be part of a company and there's like, I always call it like organ rejection. Like, somebody's just not fitting into that culture and the culture sort of rejecting them. It's usually based on the values, a shared group of values, and that person not also participating in that shared group of values, and sort of have this like, hey, I described it as like sometimes bankers in a culture I was in, bankers had a really hard time being, one of our values was adaptability and flexibility. And so they just had a really hard time integrating into that culture because it would just, from the culture they had come to, it was very rigorous and, black and white. And it was like, well, we're sort of in the gray matter here. So those values can really help make sure that when you're interviewing people, what questions to be asking. Will they be able to participate in the culture and help further that culture in the future? So, this again, not a 5-minute exercise at all, but really stress that the pieces that you need to have along with the brand positioning and the 4 corners we just talked about is also then taking the next steps into defining your mission, vision, and values. So we have some AI prompts here also that we'll give you. And hopefully what you see is when you do the cornerstone work first, this kind of rolls out of that as well. And you won't end up, honestly, with generic corporate language. So that's what we don't want to have happen. So again, think about it as it helps with your strategy. It helps with hiring. It helps with that culture, helps with your customer experience. It'll help with the day-to-day decision-making as well.
Yeah. And while we don't have the Siemens example in this particular exercise of mission, vision, values, if you go to their website and you look at their about section, their values are up there. I mean, it is so clear of what they're living and breathing and what they stand for. You know, it's not buried. It's not something that you only experience if you're inside of their four company walls. It's really projected, which I think is fantastic. And you see a lot of, again, this is not for larger companies, but the bigger you are, the more that becomes a defining factor of why people want to do business with you. So
yeah, one of the other pieces I just want to add is that very typically the about page on a website will be your most popular page that people are looking at. That can be for careers, but that also is people considering working with you. And I'll go back to the case study interview that I had. Values were brought up as one of the reasons why they chose to work with this company, is because we have shared values. And so the way that you not only, and Dana mentioned it, not only can articulate it internally, but also articulate and showcase it externally, can really make a difference in attraction for talent and also attraction for customers. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just going to say one thing before, like this today, and Dana may say the same thing, but like this, we want you to leave with the important questions you need to ask. We know that you're not going to have all the answers today. So, but hopefully we're providing you with a framework of questions that you can ask and bring other people in your company into to have a robust discussion and debate about these different pieces too.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little context. When Sally and I do this with clients, it's usually about a 2.5-hour session to go through this, and not even the mission, vision, and values, just a more expanded, analysis of the cornerstones and some adjacent cornerstones. And if you do it right, it's really challenging. It brings up a lot of questions. You're really going deep. There's a lot of discussion and debate. And, we have this here, again, that word intentionality. It takes intentionality. It takes time. And usually it takes a team. It takes some people to debate it with. If you don't have a team, a third party. If you do have a team, a third party can also be helpful and just kind of helping to moderate and keep things on track and, help make some decisions. But yeah, what we really want to do is to get you committed to the process of how helpful having something like this is. And the reason that we sent that placemat, for me, with all of my clients, I like one place where everything that we've decided on about their brand is locked in. And I'm old school. I like to see it. I like it hanging up, but wherever it is, however you like to operate, just easily accessible. And again, consistent. Everyone's using the same thing. Great to load into AI once you've got it nailed down, circulate internally, all of the things. But yeah, we don't want you to think that you should have been able to nail this in 2 minutes per exercise. If you did, then congratulations, you have clearly already put a lot of time into this, whether you've realized it or not, in being really clear about who you are and who you serve and why you're doing what you're doing. So with that, any closing words, Sally?
No, I think just, this is a really important part of a foundation of deciding what kind of business you're building, and just want to reiterate the make sure you're investing the time in it. You're getting the team on board in this, and then communicating it, and can continue to do that through the life cycle of your business.
Any questions that anyone has? We have a little bit of time for any Q&A. All right. Hopefully everyone's enjoying lunch.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Like, I feel that somehow the communicating the brand to the users or to the clients or to the world requires some certain amount of I don't know, other than the regular marketing activities, maybe PR or something like this. What would be the most effective way to have that, to structure a marketing strategy that it can drive that forward according to the
You're breaking up a little bit at the end. The one thing that I'll just kind of weigh in on in terms of how you reach your audience is that I think I think it was the second cornerstone of the who is really important in understanding, who you are attracting so you can figure out how to best reach them. A lot of times I enjoy B2B marketing a lot because I feel like it gives you some super highways to your audiences where B2C is very hard. It's very broad and it's expensive. So I think part of it is, once you understand,
Then you know that, yeah,
yeah, I
definitely.
think once you understand who your audience is, and I hate to get, too tactical about it, Sally will probably have a more strategic answer, but I do think it's, what's your budget? What's your goal? It's really understanding what you're trying to do, and then you can develop a marketing strategy that fits all of those goals.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I think going back to the who, I think reiterating, and actually one of the other parts of, a full sort of marketing playbook also is that there's a profile on your key decision makers, right? Your ICP. And one piece of that in understanding the ICP is the ideal customer profile, sorry, is making sure you understand what are the ways that they are searching for solutions, and very specifically, hey, they look at trade magazines or trade publications. They look at Google searches, is a method. AI searches is a method. And that, the idea of being really, really connected with your customer to understand what are the ways we can reach them will help to define that marketing strategy. So you mentioned PR as an example. And again, PR has evolved dramatically. If we're talking media relations specifically, in understanding your ideal customer and how they seek information, it should become clear if you really need a media relations strategy, if PR can mean content and how you're distributing content, periodicals different from trade publications, different from WKYC TV, right? So it will be very different depending on how does your customer seek that information, and just make sure you when you understand that customer and interview your customers, you're digging in further about that. I've had many clients who are either wasting money on Google ads or search engine optimization, only to find out Google searches are not a way that their customer is looking for their solution. And so you have, really could benefit instead from a partnership approach, or being at trade shows and talking in person, because their customers still going to trade shows. Just really encourage you to seek out the information from your customer on how do they evaluate decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, Lauren, anything else you wanted to wrap up with?
No, I was just going to say thank you guys so much for doing this. I know I learned a lot and it was valuable for me, so I'm hoping that it was for everybody else. But if you guys are good, then I think we're good to go, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their days.